Good evening, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us for another one of our monthly Saint Albans Today programs. And first one of the new year, this being Wednesday, January 3rd, and we have a full house, maybe the fullest house we've had on the set here. Appreciate everybody showing up, going down the line. Mike McCarthy, the Ward 4 City Councilor for Saint Albans City. Good to see you. Mike, we have outgoing Mayor Liz Gamache. First time I've used that word, Liz. Thanks for joining us. Carrie Johnson, the increasingly veteran town manager for Saint Albans Town. Carrie. Bruce Cheeseman, the Saint Albans Town Select Board Chairman. Thanks for jumping on, folks. It's a live show, at least if you're watching us live, and love phone calls. We have our regular number, 527-6449. Trust you folks had good holidays as we head into the new year. The city and town survived some pretty serious cold last week or 10 days or so. Carrie's nodding.
Yeah.
Mike, yeah, everybody survived okay so far? I'm glad to hear. Mayor Liz, let's start with yourself. Big news of just a couple weeks ago, your decision not to run for re-election. And correct me if I'm wrong, that was a change of heart. I had been talking to people, including at least one person on this set who had said, oh yeah, Liz said she's running again. Yeah, so this was a kind of a late change of heart? It was
a couple of factors. As you know, those of us who serve on the city council, we also often have day jobs as well, and my workload is increasing in some very positive ways, and so that was a factor contributing to the decision, and also a real desire to spend a bit more time with both my in-laws and my parents who are in the Burlington area, and so it was a hard decision to make, but needed to gain a little bit more balance to focus on professional and some family.
And speaking about your day job, tell me, you've got another very good day job. Yeah,
I am working for the Vermont Community Foundation. I'm the Vice President of Grants and Community Investments, and the Community Foundation serves the entire state of Vermont. What we do is we connect donors and philanthropists to find and fund the causes that they love that help to support Vermont communities. My role is I'm on the side of the business that's connected to nonprofits and communities to understand what the needs are, and then to make recommendations to help funnel those donations and dollars to serve Vermont communities where they can be best utilized. So it's an exciting job, and of course, for me, building strong and healthy communities is the passion, whether it's been my volunteer work or my professional work. That really motivates me. So it's an exciting opportunity to do community development work and economic development work throughout the state.
So no regret once you made your decision. No regrets. You're comfortable with your decision? Or?
I'm comfortable with it, and it was a really hard decision to make, because I'll tell you, serving as mayor has just been the greatest honor and thrill for me. Outside of raising a family, it's been just the greatest honor of my life to be able to serve a community in this capacity, and to work with so many great folks who put community first and want to create a better environment, not just for us today, but for our kids and for the future. So not at all an easy decision, but I know that as we move forward, we've got a really strong foundation, and we'll continue to work together to solve problems and continue to improve the quality of life in the area. And I'm not going anywhere, so I won't be mayor. But I hope you don't forget all about me. I want to stay involved and continue to contribute.
At this point, we have one, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tim Smith, who's if he's not a household name around here, I don't think anybody else is an announced candidate for mayor. Am I missing anybody? Is anybody else announced?
That's the only candidate that I'm aware of, and I'm very pleased to support Tim. I've known Tim for a long time, and I think back to when I was making the decision to get in the race to run for mayor. Initially, some of the conversations he and I had about the importance of community development and economic development. He knows those issues well and how they intersect, and so I think he could bring a lot to the community.
Interesting. Mike, the city council seats, I meant to check that. The city council seats that are up in March are what wards?
So Chad Spooner and Kate Lattison, so that's Ward 4, I'm Ward 4. Kate is Ward 5 and Chad is Ward 3.
Nope.
No.
The numbers on the other side of the town.
They'd be adjoining numbers.
I think it's 6.
So 5 and 6 are up?
5 and 6.
Chad, call in if we've got it
Chad
wrong.
must be 6 then. Yeah, because Kate is definitely
right.
5. Yep.
And are those folks, are they running again? Have they said what
Yes,
they're doing?
my understanding is they're planning to run again.
Okay, so wards 5 and 6 are on.
Yeah.
Okay, and Bruce, I know you'll be paying attention, obviously, March town meeting day, you're an announced candidate for re-election.
That's correct, yep.
Speaking of the filing deadline, is typically late. Does anybody have that date? It's late January.
Yeah, it's
sometime?
usually about the third or fourth week of January.
Okay, so folks still have time if they want to jump in and run for.
Best not to wait till the last day, though. They have to check those signatures.
Right. Liz, there's certainly a lot of accomplishment. Looking back on and again, I realize you have a couple months. I'm not throwing out the mayoral door at this point. You have a couple months left, but pretty easy to see some pretty visible accomplishments. Obviously, with downtown revitalization, does that top the list, or are there a lot of things you'll look back on?
There are many things, and you can look and visibly see many of the changes that have taken place, and I'm very proud of what we've done in the downtowns and working in the neighborhoods. But for me, the biggest accomplishment is something that you don't see. When I hear people talk about renewed civic pride, and when they speak about getting together to solve problems, we're not a community without problems. We never will be. We always will have challenges. But when I hear people talk about the excitement about working together to find solutions rather than oppose one another, I'm really proud of that. So I hope I've contributed to that over the last several years to create a respectful environment where people can share their thoughts and ideas. We don't always agree on everything, and that's okay. We shouldn't, but we should be able to have respectful dialogue and get issues out on the table. And I'm just so thrilled for the partnership with the town, and that over the last several years we've been able to engage in increasingly more ways that I think are good for both communities, and that's one example that makes me really happy. It's about the people,
Bruce is on record as saying he's very confident that in 2018 there will finally be an agreement on the ever sticky, thorny wastewater issue. Are you as
I am working to the very end of my third term, and Richard,
you're going to get this done in the next 2 months, I hope.
We are. Yeah, I'm very hopeful.
Is that conceivable?
I've delivered on pretty much, I think, everything we've talked about. So I've got a good track record.
Well, we've been working. Liz, myself, Stan Dukas started in with us, and then Sam Smith took over, along with Dominic, and I think this May will be 2 years that we've been working on to try to come up with some sort of an agreement. And I think we've narrowed it right down in pretty good shape, and the basis of it. And we got to take it before both your board and ours and the public and see what they say. But I think we're almost there.
So a vote, there's no way, obviously not March. You're hoping for maybe a November vote on that? Bruce?
I would love to say yes to November, but there's a few things that have to be ironed out. Might take us a little bit of time.
But it will go to the voters. Or not necessarily.
Yes, it will go to the voters. The voters would definitely be aware of what we're doing.
What about, Liz, what about in the city? If there is an agreement, will that go to the voters, or will it be a city council decision?
We're getting ahead of ourselves. Yeah. So I'll just say that what's really important will be that very shortly we'll be able to start talking about it publicly. We're still ironing out a few things. We'll be looking for public feedback, and right. We'll be taking it seriously.
Yeah. Mike, your thoughts? You've had some dealings with this issue over the years, I suspect.
Yeah, I mean, I think the public perception is that the city and the town, a lot of the animosity has been done away with, and that's in large part because of the leadership and the collaboration that folks like Bruce and Liz and Carrie and Dominic have brought to the table, both on the professional leadership and the elected select board and city council members. So people in the community want to see the town and the city work together, I think, by and large. And I think at this point, it's just a matter of making sure that the deal that gets made around water is good for both of the sister-brother communities. And it's great to have the spirit of cooperation be sort of overriding. And I think that's what people in the city and the town both have been crying for. And as a person who's relatively new to the community, it never really made sense to me that there seemed to be these Hatfield-McCoy kinds of, somebody made a joke when I first asked about why is there so much disagreement between the town and the city about, well, there's 100 people that will have to pass on before there's agreement between the city and town on this, and 95 of them have done that. That was the joke I was told a few years ago, and it seems that we've kind of crossed a threshold where the attitude is one of cooperation. And I think when we do have this water deal, it'll finally get us to a place where maybe we can start to think even beyond the partnerships that we have on other things. I mean, the partnership we have on policing, for instance, that's one that's been so good for both communities. And when we were at our finance committee meeting today, just looking at what we're able to do to keep both communities safe and have a really professional and outstanding police force, that's in large part because of that partnership. So if we can find other ways to collaborate, I think it's going to be good for Greater St. Albans.
Carrie, what do you think? We might as well get your take on this.
I agree with Mike's comments. We have we do a lot of things behind the scenes that not many people are aware of. I mean, they kind of think about them. They don't think any deeper than that initial, like one elevator speech. But we also are doing parks and recreation. That's something that when I first got here, there was no collaboration whatsoever, and there was a little bit of an animosity at that time, but we've been working together 2 or 3 years now. We don't even talk about it. It's just
3 years.
Of course, fire is another.
It's not a topic, and we're in the initial stages of talking about consolidation for fire services as well.
And our public service departments get along well too. I mean,
our DPW shares equipment.
Come a long ways.
Hopefully we don't need it, but we shared that a few years ago when you start having a lot of ice or freezing issues. So.
Fire department merger, Bruce, can you see that happening in 2018? You think within the next year that may happen?
That's a tough one. Again, the two fire departments merging, it's much like water and sewer. There's a ton of stuff that has to be ironed out. I mean, there's a lot of logistics to it that really hasn't been gone through yet, and it needs to before I could give a positive answer on that one.
Yet it doesn't mean that the departments
but
don't
the collaboration
work closely
is
together.
still there.
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
the collaboration is still there. I think that most fires that you go to, or most fires that happen in the city or the town, you find most of the time you find both departments there, and very supportive of each other.
They both, I sense, support it, both departments, and I think we're more interested in getting this done right than getting it done quickly.
Yeah.
And I want everyone to feel comfortable about it. We want everyone to feel comfortable about it. So I don't want anyone to think we're rushing and we're skipping something, we're trying to gloss over anything. We want there to be absolute trust on both sides when we finally get to that point.
Yeah,
Do
I
you
think
think there's some forward progress on that issue? I mean, is it?
We are making progress. I'd say every month or two we're making progress, but we haven't put a deadline on it or a goal of it must be done or it shall be done in 2018. I think we're more concerned about just getting it done right.
One of my biggest challenges since I've been a selectman is to get the water and sewer behind us. But I have to agree with Carrie. We got to do it right. And if I still feel quite certain that it'll happen this year. One way or another, it's going to happen this year. But we do have to make sure that things are done correctly.
It's looking ahead
It's a long-lasting agreement.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a forever agreement. So you want to make sure the marriage is right on the way in. You're meant for each other.
Long-term relationship.
You still have a couple months left in your term. So aside from water, wastewater, fire department merger, a couple of very big issues. What else looking ahead to 2018? Realizing, you're not going to be around for a majority of the year, but what else would you like to see the city moving on this year?
Well, of course, this is the time of the year that we're putting our budgets together.
We'll talk some budgets,
working on that. But looking ahead, we've got the development at Congress and Main, which we are having some really positive momentum on. We have developers that are working on concepts for that location. So we expect that we're probably not too far off from starting to share some of those designs with the public. We've been working to identify a new home for the police department, fire department, the public safety complex. So I think we're also quite close on having some possibilities there.
The Fonda Solo site being a
that's also
potential.
That's also been something we've been working on, and that's got some really good redevelopment potential and interest. One of the things that would need to happen is it's a brownfield site, so even though we've already done some cleanup work, there's still a bit more that needs to be done. I would expect that at some point to get that done in the not too distant future, we'd be looking to have voter approval to use TIF funds, which one of the uses is to clean up brownfield sites, so that we could get that ready for development. It's a great site. It actually comes with a pretty significant wastewater allocation, which will be attractive, I think, to potential businesses that might move in, maybe light industrial.
Might you move on that? Do you think you might, visibly move on that issue this year?
I expect there's a very strong likelihood of that. We are fortunate in our area in Franklin County that we've got the level of interest right now in terms of the energy and the momentum that people are seeing take place in our area. And you are attracting development interest, so we're laying the groundwork that invites that interest and that investment. So, one of the themes has been public-private investment, putting public dollars into infrastructure investments in ways that will invite that private investment to follow it. We've seen that playing out in the downtown, and that continues.
Mike, you've been much involved. Are you still on? You're head of the downtown board, whatever?
I was the chair of the downtown board for a few years, and was on it when Liz was the chair of the downtown board, and I left, and Katie Collin took over when I got my seat on the council in the spring. So I'm no longer there, but the work that we did in the downtown, when I read the coverage of the holiday season in the Messenger about how well the shops were doing, that's the indicator. That's the temperature taker of, did we do this right, and do we have the kind of thriving, have we filled the storefronts? We talked for years and years about the number of empty storefronts, and I remember, when I got back to Saint Albans 10 years ago and was starting a business in the downtown, there were a lot of empty storefronts, and the progress we've made in that decade is just enormous. To see the amount of shopping that was going on frigid days, and downtown's bustling, and people coming in and out of shops, and it seems like everywhere you turn there are people filling bags with gifts. That's the kind of thriving downtown that we envisioned, I think, and that people have been trying to work toward in this community for years, and now we've got it.
And anything more you can, I guess there's always more you can do, but any specific things you'd like to see about, more downtown development? Or
there are some properties in particular that,
and of course, the North Main Congress Street.
Yeah, I think we're also we're looking kind of around the corner and just off of Main Street at some areas. There have been some conceptual work done on the Catherine Stebbins Street, and some properties where if the right opportunity comes along, we may be able to help a developer take care of some underutilized parcels there to try to bolster the downtown. And I think we're kind of looking at that next wave, that next level of public-private partnership and investment to try to get some properties that aren't in the best shape. Some of them are actually blighted, some of them are just underutilized, and think long-term about, if the opportunity comes with the right property owner and the right project, could a little bit of public investment help turn that into something that's a greater value on the grand list, that has more economic activity in the downtown? And I think there's some consensus on the council that will continue to be forward thinking and creative about how we help to finance those projects and make sure that we continue to see the kind of development in the core of the downtown and the beyond, what you would think of as just the main street and the core downtown.
Bruce, as the city, again, talking about moving on a new fire department, police department, headquarters at some point. The town certainly been giving a lot of attention to the possibility of a new site for the town hall.
Sure.
What can you tell? How's that going?
I'm going to direct that to Carrie because Carrie's on that board.
Carrie, you've got what? Are there a couple potential sites that have been identified?
There are. Yeah, we've narrowed it down to 2 sites, and we actually hired a consultant to review those sites, and so that we can compare apples to apples on each site.
And this would be a new town hall and public works garage, or possibly, or more?
Both.
Presumably
we're actually looking for
garage.
sites for both, closer to creating a new municipal center. I hesitate to call it a downtown because they won't necessarily let us have a downtown, but they will let us designate a town center, and it's not just a growth center, but an actual municipal center where we could have a town hall, maybe a performing arts space, and a transit center, and our DPW in some hidden part of the lot, because whether we like it or not, our Department of Public Works are very useful and necessary, but not very pretty. So they're not always a good mix. So it's possible if we get a lot big enough, we can put it back, screen it, and put it all in one lot. We're looking at all those options right now. And we're getting a report in January on that from our consultants, so we expect to be able to move maybe to that next step after, of course, we've negotiated some sort of offer with the landowner to make that public information, and then start to have a community discussion about our recommendations. This is what we're thinking, and it's exciting, as Liz said, to start bringing the community into that discussion, because we can sit around a table and we know a lot of what we need, but there's certainly things we're missing. So we're going to ask for that public input. I would expect this year to have at least 1 or 2 public meetings where we make our proposals, we set our proposals out, and then ask for ideas, comments.
And this issue will go to voters? Voters will get...
It would, yeah. We're expecting that deadline for us. We're hoping to get that in November.
So November.
Yeah, to have a
Bruce,
vote on that.
you convinced you need a new site? Are you pretty convinced
Oh,
of that?
absolutely.
I mean, certainly not everybody in the town. Obviously, the Bay side still has its supporters.
Yeah, it does. It does, but if you take a look at the building, the property itself is just not large enough. It's not gonna be what we need to for growth. Like I said many times before, the lot is too small, and we did we've done a lot of work on this, and we've actually gone out and to renovate and bring our present building up to code, we'd have to purchase property from neighbors, most likely, and to do all that and build a new place to match what we've got, square footage wise, it's almost the same amount of money. That's what the estimate that we had done some years ago.
Yeah, one would only probably buy us 10, 15 years. The other one, we're hoping 50.
And I know there's a lot of proud people down in the Bay that have been there for years and love that old building and everything, but we really should be located near the larger portion of the population.
Speaking of the Bay Dock, I know there have been some engineering studies being done on that. Bruce or Carrie, any results of that? Anything to tell folks about the future of the Bay Dock?
We're also expecting that in a couple weeks. Well, within a week. I just got there's an unopened email, I think, in my inbox right now with draft report. So they're doing an analysis on existing conditions and then possibly giving us options on how much it's going to cost and what it will take to raise the elevation of the dock. So that's going to be a pretty big community discussion as well, because right now it's at 98 and change.
About 98, yeah.
And so, of course, we all know when the lake level rises above that, the dock's underwater, which is rather inconvenient for those that want to use it for fishing, just for walking on. We've had to move the
fireworks
site for
even
fireworks
yeah,
because it's underwater. So it doesn't get full year use, and even now it's getting quite a bit of use, although they're using the whole bay because it's frozen. But so we're expecting that soon so that we can make a decision about, do we elevate it to 101, and what does it cost? And what's the useful life of the actual structure today?
And that's getting a lot of public attention too. I've gotten phone calls at home. I've got the 2 people that actually sent me pictures of docks and piers that they've taken in Florida in different places. And people have their opinions of what it should be. You know, should it remain a dock or should it be more of a pier? You know, that we dress up, put lights on it. You know, railings, seats, so people.
Burlington's fishing pier, I guess,
Exactly.
whatever it's called. It's pretty cool. Nice place. You can also park for free in case anybody's looking desperately for parking down there. At least last time I was there. Anyway, so maybe a pier instead of just.
Yeah, and the last thing we want to do, you know, Chuck Lowe, of course, is going to be opening his marina in May.
And the marina is a total go. I mean, the marina's
Total
like a go.
They've started
Total
construction, and I mean they're permitted starting construction, so it is. Definitely
I got to think they
moving
might
forward.
want a higher lake level. I've thought about those folks. Remember how low the lake got a little over a year ago when you could walk from Kilcare to Mosquito Island.
Yeah.
I think the lake's lower right now than it was at the end of last year.
I was
I think they
talking-
might be hoping for a decent precipitation over the winter, but whatever.
I was talking to Chuck and his business partner yesterday, and they are just so excited it isn't funny for May. They've actually have some of their docks in right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I've noticed some of the work going on.
Yep.
Interesting. Mike, looking at the city, what are some of the biggest issue in 2018? What would you like to move forward on or tackle?
I think we're going to continue to have a focus on the economic development, which we've already talked about a lot during this hour. But I would say what goes hand in hand with that are the public safety issues. And we're looking at a budget that makes some more investment in law enforcement and continues to make investments in the Restorative Justice Center and the kind of community justice that goes hand in hand with that. We continue to take the opiate crisis head on. The city is a place that has had its fair share of police encounters with drug trade, but I think that the efforts that we've made that have been that have happened to date have borne fruit.
Of course, the Drug Treatment Center, big news in 2017 with the opening of the BARD Treatment Center. How's that gone to your eyes? Has that gone pretty well?
I think it's a little too soon to really say how it's gone. I think
Certainly saved a number of people some serious traveling, to Newport or Burlington every day or whenever?
I think the bottom line is saving people's lives.
Yeah.
And it's offering an opportunity for people who have had to rely on illegal drugs to be able to have the option of getting into treatment, medically assisted therapies right away. So having that option, I think, is going to lower the demand for illegal drugs. But time will really tell whether it has the kind of public safety impact that we want it to have. And what other kinds of impacts it has on the community that are collateral to that. I think the biggest thing is if we don't have an opportunity for people to seek appropriate treatment, then their only opportunity, their only avenue when they're suffering from addiction is to steal in order to get drugs on the street. So the most important thing is that we have that avenue to make sure that there's an opportunity for people to get the treatment that they need.
Liz, how do you think the treatment center has fared in its early 10-year first?
Yeah,
months?
well, I agree that it's important to have something that's located that prevents people from having to do the long treks to Newport or to Burlington on a daily basis. So, I as far as I can tell, things are going well. I will say that, on this subject, I think Saint Albans really first started looking at the emerging and changing crime trends related to drugs probably about 10 years ago or so, maybe 2006, 2007 timeframe when we started seeing spikes in those crimes and then some different types of crimes occurring.
Certainly give then Mayor Manahan credit for tackling that issue pretty hard in the city council. I mean, I'm sure a lot of communities, the last thing they would have wanted would be to give any attention to that issue, but I think Marty and the council pretty much tackled it head on, hopefully with some positive results.
Yeah, I think we reached a point where we were willing to, put it out there and talk about it where other communities, and even within our community at that time, I can remember, a debate. Do we talk about it or not? Well, if we don't talk about it, it's hard to make progress. Having said that, it's a challenge, and one of the things that's happened over the last several years that bodes well is that the stability of the police department has increased. We're attracting more easily, and that's not an easy thing to do. It's hard to find
not a ton
qualified,
of people seem
skilled
to be
people.
jumping into police work these days.
But the stability and the turnover in our force has stabilized. So I think that's really important. I think it goes to the whole notion about the importance of creating community development and economic development. When we can create a place where people want to live, want to work, and are willing to make an investment of their time and their roots, good things start to happen. So more stable police department is definitely a plus. And as Mike mentioned, we'll be talking in the budget about how we look at funding the future with public safety. So we'll have a meeting, a city council meeting this Monday night. Hopefully people will attend or will tune in to learn more about that.
Okay. Bruce and Carrie, dealing with the budget, you're within a couple of weeks. I mean, you need to nail down your budget within next few weeks. Still a chance for the public to pipe in on this, on what you're looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have a budget meeting next week and a regular meeting actually on January 16th. And we welcome any comments on that. I love to actually geek out and talk about the budget. I love to talk about the budget because it's very straightforward. We have a pretty responsible budget, and it shouldn't be increasing a whole lot. We've worked really hard to keep it down, but we're still in the draft stages. I mean, we have a real work session ahead of us, and sometimes we have to cut things. So we're not done yet, but we're pushing forward. I think we have a lot of exciting things going forward planned, which we're looking forward to. I mean, some small things, some big things, but something as small as we're seriously considering, and I'm pretty sure it'll happen, but putting a covered pavilion at Cohen Park.
Really?
So many people have their family reunions there, and we've had one. And
Can we throw in a tennis court too? Any chance for?
This isn't Christmas. No, I don't know.
But a covered pavilion. That's a great park.
Right, we're trying to put more
park.
amenities there. The paved paths we put down at the Bay Park have been wildly successful.
Yeah.
They allow a lot of ADA access that wasn't there before in such a beautiful venue. I mean, we paved the parking areas for them, and we have about 1.6 miles of beautifully kept paved paths down there.
Yeah, no, you did a good job with that. I use that all the time.
And one of the other projects we're really hoping to get kick-started this coming year is a rec path, an actual recreation path that would connect Collins Pearly to SATEC, provide a safe way to cross that Saint Albans State Highway that we sometimes refer to as a SASH, and also then connect in a way that path that's going to go north, east, west to Gricebrook, and then cross that little brook, Stevens Brook, to the city sidewalk system. So we're trying to connect it in at least two different spots. One, Main Street. We're not sure exactly how we're going to get from Main Street to that intersection, but it's exciting that's a fun project to work on. A lot of people seem supportive of it. We've talked to schools, the hospital, and a couple of other different groups because it's just fun for a lot of, personally and selfishly, I'd love to walk on it or run on it, but it would be successful, or I think it would be used by almost every age group and ability out there. So
Bruce, you certainly have some bucks you can use for that, and
sure, yeah. Well, we can do a lot of the work
local
ourselves
option sales
too.
tax fund there. That's got some pretty good bucks in it these days.
Yeah, we'll be looking for some money somewhere, but we can also utilize our own assets, such as our public works department. We have the equipment and the manpower, and the knowledge, to put a bike path in. There's no doubt there. That's kind of Carrie's been running with that ball. She's done a really good job. This is kind of her project. And it's come a long ways, and there's a lot of people that are excited about it. And I think of all the things that we'd like to do for 2018. I did say that 18 is going to be our year for the town. We're going to accomplish a lot. This one I can actually see getting done. This one is a good deal, and it provides a lot of safety for the kids that are now walking up and down that route. You know, every once in a while I travel it going out of town, and I'm seeing more and more foot traffic on that road.
No,
and the folks at Gracebrook would love to have access to the 19 exit.
To expand on that, we're in negotiations, I'll call them, discussions with VTrans about how we cross that road, or how pedestrians would cross the road. And we're talking about putting, at this point, maybe a 3-way vehicular intersection with crosswalks. And I don't know what the lighting situation is going to be. That's what we're actually discussing at this point, whether it has to be a full signaled light or could have caution light that blinks differently when there's people that need to cross the road, of course. So, but that's where the goat paths are. So that's what our consultant that we met with about a year and a half ago, we looked at 26, 30 different options on how to do that. But really, you need to look at where people are crossing now. You can't expect that if you put a beautiful bridge, even if you can find the money for it, a half a mile down the road, they're going to do it. They're not going to climb up the ramp and the stairs if they can cross right here, even if that's unsafe, because we're trying to address both high school students.
We talked bridges, we talked ramps, we talked tunnels.
We did.
The whole 9 yards. This one's been gone over very thoroughly, and I think we've got probably the option on the table right now is probably the best that we've come up with. And we are also working with VTrans, which is, let's say that they've been pretty cooperative.
They're very supportive, surprisingly.
Yeah.
About 10 years ago, when we asked, someone at the town, it wasn't me obviously, said, how do we cross this road? Can we just put a 4-way intersection there? Absolutely not.
They said, forget it.
Well, that's a limited access highway, but I think, just like other things change, it's an old planning design to have a limited access highway, and I think there's only 2 left in the state.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, the other one I believe is in St. Johnsbury.
And that's interesting. Bruce, there was talk about a skating rink at the Saint Albans Bay Park.
Yeah.
I realized I had a very cold walk down there by myself on New Year's Eve day, and happened to walk there. I realized the weather hasn't been cooperative, but that's not going to. Didn't look like it was too close to happening.
I think our public works director made some pretty honest attempts in doing it. And,
Sounds like it.
I don't know, Carrie, how successful has he been? I don't think it's.
Didn't look like it was happening.
Yeah, we had water in it. It froze, and then we had the thaw, and then all the water ended up on him when he was trying to secure it. Yeah. And then I think since it's been so cold, he hasn't really made a lot of effort to get the fire department down there to fill it.
Well, kudos for even thinking about it. It was a good thought. Who knows? Maybe next year things will work out better.
Yeah. No, we're actually.
So you wouldn't totally concede defeat for this winter?
No, he has all the hardware there. So if the weather moderates a little, I think you should be able to try it again.
Winter's not over yet.
It's sadly it's not.
It sounds like
pretty good ice skating in February.
Yeah, no, it sounds like winter is far from it. Speaking of which, again, I think we've just been so softened up around here by some pretty relatively soft winters. I don't think Burlington had a day below 0 in 2017 until the very end of the year. Mm-hmm. And we got a pretty good hit, but I guess we talked about that. But the city and town, I guess, survived that. Yeah. Friday and Saturday sound like a couple of just miserable days coming up.
Yeah. It's very difficult to fight the ice and the light layers of snow when it's that cold. And I guess my PSA here is that we have, I can't speak for the city, a safe roads policy as opposed to a clear roads policy, the same as VTrans. So that means if it's black and it's shiny, it could be black ice. I mean, we put a lot of product on the road. We're not shy about that. We still can't be there all the time, and we can't always see what's going on, and it changes so rapidly, of course. So I would just urge a lot of caution, because even what looks like nothing could very well be black ice.
So. And when we have these times where you get up into the 20s and then you go down into single digits and sub-zero temperatures, that product it isn't working anymore.
It doesn't.
It doesn't work.
And that is really dangerous. I would caution people to be careful.
So the stuff they put on is just sub-zero temperatures, whatever. The brine is just worthless sub-zero.
There are some products, but at a certain point, you really just have to slow down a lot. We added a little bit of dirt to some of our intersections. We don't usually do that, just because the salt itself wasn't quite enough. It adds a little grit, but it's not magic.
Yeah, the term you always hear, the police. I'm so sympathetic. I'm a crazy guy, I guess. I actually think speed limits are pretty reasonable. It's just, I mean, I do a ton of driving, about 30,000 miles. Maybe Liz is above that, but
it's a lot.
Just the people who just, are passing me in crazy places. But as police say, drive to the conditions.
Well, and speed limits are for ideal conditions, and winter is obviously less than ideal.
Less than ideal.
It's a huge understatement, but it is less than ideal. So please slow down.
That's good. If Mike, you've logged some time in Montpelier. What are you looking from a Saint Albans City perspective? Anything in particular from the legislature which showed up in Montpelier today?
Yeah.
Anything they can do for you folks?
I think what we
Maybe
really
not hurt you too much.
Yeah,
or?
I think what we'd really like to see is, especially given that we want to continue to take advantage in responsible ways of tax increment financing. That is. There are some tweaks that need to come to TIF, and we want to make sure that we're able to continue to do the things that we've been able to be successful with for future projects.
Don't you have a TIF deadline coming? Do you have to?
Initially it was 5 years, and then the rules changed. So a 5-year window in which to start and
in which you had anything you wanted to do with TIF financing, you had to do in that.
Yeah, that's been extended.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we have a little more room to play.
And hasn't Kingman Street, haven't you talked about possibly some streetscape work on Kingman Street? Under the TIF umbrella?
Yep.
Is that a definite plan or a hope
We've
plan?
got plans, but we don't have all the funding secured. So grant funding, TIF funding, we'll see what comes to play.
Anyway, so maybe some TIF tweaking?
Yeah, and I think there are so many controversial kind of, top level things going on that are making headlines, like the marijuana
Usual
legislation.
Suspects, of course, education funding, marijuana legal.
Yeah, some of the stuff that's scarier, though, I think is gonna come if we actually get a federal budget. And trying to anticipate the thing that really frightens me is how are we going to be able to continue to support the community development work that we're doing and the other important things where municipalities rely on the state if we're facing declining revenues just because of changes in the federal tax code. So the way that the tax law change is going to impact state revenues is something that Montpelier is going to have to react to, if not this year, then definitely in the following one. But it's going to start to have an impact in fiscal 19, which starts in July. So that's something that when we think about the grants and the other funding sources that we rely on in our partnerships with the state on these kinds of projects, Kingman Street, if the state's really suffering significantly in general fund because of these changes in federal tax law, our state taxes sort of piggyback and mirror in large part the federal law, and that's really the most frightening thing. And getting in the weeds of that is not as sexy as writing a headline about the pot bill, but I think it's going to have a much greater impact on people's everyday lives and the quality of life in our communities. So that's something to look for and something that the legislators are really going to have to grapple with.
Liz, you get together with your fellow mayors around Vermont periodically or regularly?
Yeah, we have what's called the Vermont Mayors Coalition. There are 8 mayors in the state of Vermont. We'll be together tomorrow, as has been the recent tradition over the last few years. We've been invited by the governors to sit in the balcony with the administration for the state of the state. So we'll be doing that. And, that's something, my understanding is that this coalition had sort of had some steam a few years ago, and then for a while it was dormant. Over the last few years, we're recognized by governors, whether it was Governor Shumlin or now Governor Scott, and our views and thoughts about what our communities need are quite valued. So I expect that will continue in the future, although we'll have a few mayors not running for re-election, so it'll be a new cast of characters in 2018. But The recognition of the importance of downtowns is something that impacts all the communities that have mayors, because we all have downtowns, and creating walkable communities with good transportation options, which I don't think we have the transportation options that we need. That's an area that I'd like to see more focus on, is creating more public transit options and supporting, the development of downtown so people can live, work in downtown locations.
Bruce, as you look to the legislature, anything in Montpelier do anything for St. Albans Town in particular?
No, not anything that I can think of. I mean,
yeah. Carrie, anything?
We talked with,
they were at our meeting
In fact,
last
they were
night.
at your meeting last night.
a lot of generalities. I don't think there's any one bill that we're overly concerned about at this time.
The only bill that I'm a little bit concerned about is 9L. I mean, that's, 9L itself, that's awfully confusing to me. I can't.
I'm sorry, Bruce, what bill?
Well, it's.
Act 250.
Pardon me?
You're talking Act
The
250?
legislation that created Act 250,
Act
not
250.
9L, which
9L is.
doesn't make it very easy for suburbs to develop, and
Yeah.
we're the suburbs.
It's a bit confusing. That's, as you can tell.
We're finding plenty to talk about, but if
Yeah.
anybody wants to jump in out there, give us a call, folks.
I will-
527-6449 is our number.
I would like to just point out, I think I was here a few months ago, maybe 6, talking about how we're trying to get the word out to people, and it's different people like it different ways. But Vermont Alert recently just changed, and they require now everyone to sign up again. So if you were at one point getting alerts on your phone, hey, there's a weather incident, or usually it's weather, Amber Alerts, those kind of things, but they have about 10 things you can sign up for. It takes like 2 minutes, but you need to go up as if you've never signed up before and sign up again. We were using it to notify people of road closures, weather events. If there was a fire and a street was closed, we were going to possibly do a radius around that fire, those kind of things. So I can't remember the company name, but if you go on the Vermont Alert site, it'll direct you to just sign up again. They redid that, so it's just an easier way for us to get the word out to people in case something happens. People assume we have this special phone book with everyone's phone numbers, including cells and their home landlines. We don't have that. We really can't just call you and say, look, the street down the road, that's closed now. Go around.
Does social media do you a lot?
We do use social media. We're trying to grow our page. I think we're at about 2,000. It's a very effective tool to get the message out. You can kind of force or sponsor messages. And we also use our website and obviously the messenger. But depending on who you are, you get your news in a different way.
Out of curiosity, St. Albans Town population are close to about 6,000 now. Have you got a recent population
over
figure?
I think it's over. 6,402 is, I think, the last number I had.
Are you ahead of Swanton? Are you now number 2 behind the city? I almost think you
believe
might
that
be
we
are.
past Swanton.
I
then.
do believe
Fairfax
we are.
is growing quite a bit as well,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly. But I think I believe we're in the top.
And Fairfax going the route of hiring a town manager.
Yes, full time, I heard. Right. There's a lot to be done.
Wow.
Carrie, speaking of which, again, you've been on the job for over 5 years now.
I have.
I maybe asked you this last time I saw you on the set here. Has your job changed a lot, or is it still? I'm sure it's gotten easier, right? Easier and less complicated.
Yeah,
over that 5
definitely
years?
that. Yeah, all that. It has changed in that I feel, in many ways, I feel more confident about what I'm doing and what to expect. There's a lot of different things I do. None of them I'm kind of a generalist. Someone said that once at one of our manager meetings. So I'm not the specialist. I'm not the department head who deals with this every day. But there's a lot of little things I'm asked to be aware of. I think the most challenging is the public rhetoric is a little, it's more volatile. I mean, maybe not so much here, but I get snippets of that. And so dialing that back and trying to get to the root of the problem so that I can help someone is a little more challenging than it used to be. It used to be an exception that maybe over a course of a year someone would be truly upset with maybe something we did, and it seems more personal when it shouldn't be. We're all trying to do the right thing,
And you're talking about like nasty phone calls, or in what form?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I'm the complaint department, right? I don't usually have somebody calling me to say thank you, although I have, and we have, and it's awesome. It's lovely. I share it with our employees. And a few people did after the ice storm, and they have periodically done so after say, a big weather event. It's really rewarding. So that just seems to be a little more challenging.
Bruce, the town-owned property on Brigham Road, under contract to a certain entity. Anything?
Nothing new.
Out. Nothing new.
No.
But would you expect in 2018 at some point you'll be able to talk about it? Is the entity in question still? Well, I guess it's under contract. I guess that speaks for itself.
I think at some point in 2018 we might be able to tell a story.
Are you surprised?
That's probably true.
Surprised it's taking so long? This is
no, not really. That was part of the. We knew that on the way in. Put it that way.
Will this be big news? Will this be very significant news? Can you characterize this at all?
It will likely be fairly significant news if they're successful.
Yeah. Any again? Town Industrial Park, Peerless Clothing, Ben & Jerry's big expansion. Barry Callebaut as well. Something are they?
I've heard they're going to. Peerless obviously is doing
is going well.
Huge expansion right now.
And of course, Peerless has logging some space out at the old Energizer plant.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anything else in the town park that you're aware of?
Nothing right now. Those three things are rather substantial, and we have 2 new tenants going into our Franklin Park West Industrial Park, which is exciting. One of them being your very own LCATV, but Saint Albans Glass is going to be moving there into a new building.
Yeah, I guess we'll be out there in, I guess maybe several months from now. We certainly thank BFA for being very good to us over the years, but I think the staff here is looking forward to a little more space out there.
So when do you expect to make the transition?
You're talking to the wrong person.
It's on a need-to-know basis.
He's the one who asked the question.
I'm waiting for that.
Right, I got the luxury of asking questions. I don't need to. But
yeah,
Zach,
we don't
Zach
know.
Maybe knows. Zach, are we talking springtime maybe for our new digs? I'm not sure. Done anyway.
Construction is always
I think we
a
can
gamble.
safely say, we better safely say in 2018 sometime. Hopefully sooner than later.
Well, David will be calling in soon.
Yeah, that could be. In the city, any news on, I don't know, new jobs, new businesses downtown, anything of note to report, Mayor Liz?
Great holiday season. So really happy
it was
about
a good season downtown.
Hotel has been doing really well. We're hearing that many sellout weekends or close to sellout weekends. We're really thrilled about that. So it'll stay lively, I'm sure.
I asked Carrie about her job just changes. Looking back on your, which I suspect you may be doing a bit these days, has your job as mayor, I realize the big buckos are there as always, I'm kidding. But
She's in it for the money.
You feel like you deal with the job differently? Any big changes over the years of your mayorship?
Sure. I never imagined that I would run for an elected office at all. So getting into the race came as a bit of a surprise for me. So I had a lot to learn. Carrie, I'll echo some of what you said. I definitely feel more confident, having more experience. You build that up over time. And also, dealing with some of the rhetoric can be challenging. My skin is a lot thicker than it used to be, for sure. And I think when we live in a small community like we do, remembering that, pretty much for the most part, those of us who are involved have good intentions. We may not always agree with each other, but, we're a small community. We bump into each other in the grocery store and, when we're at school with our kids and stuff. And so, just keeping that in mind is really important. Yeah.
You think local government, Mike, with the federal government, it just seems like, dysfunction. We could throw out a lot of adjectives. Do you think local government, and we've talked about, again, folks talking about some harder comments than they used to get. Do you think local government is still perceived as, folks who still get the job done or do a pretty decent job as opposed to the kind of the higher up you go?
I think that the way we communicate has changed politically at all levels of government, but that at the local level there's still more civility. things aren't polarized and partisan the way they are, even in the state politics that I've been involved in, and it's refreshing to have that. There are people that definitely don't have the same opinions about state policy that are serving with me in various capacities, that we get along great when we're talking about, the sort of nuts and bolts of literally where the rubber meets the road of infrastructure and economic development and the stuff you deal with in your community. And in large part, it's because of what Liz was saying. When we have people come in, we had a pretty animated, vicious dog hearing a couple months back. And talking with those people who I've known for years, most of the people who are involved in that, and they're neighbors with Liz, and they're there before us as the legislative body, and we're not going to be, we're going to work to build consensus and understanding and to listen to each other, because we're not going to be able to go home and be hundreds of miles away or not see each other. We're going to see each other in the grocery store. We're going to walk down past each other on the sidewalk. So, I think there's more civility because of that, but there's something really wrong with our society right now in terms of it used to be you could agree to disagree and have different politics and still be friends, and there's some nastiness right now, and it's even gotten down into some of the local conversations, but it's not nearly as bad as when you go up to talking about things at the national level.
Yeah. Bruce, any thoughts on that same subject, or there's still a fair amount of civility at the local level, or not as much as there used to be?
No, I just couldn't believe how difficult it is to make changes. I mean, people just get settled in their ways, and it is it's really tough to get some folks to change their ways, change their way of thinking. But
that's right. Again, folks, you have a couple minutes left if anybody wants to jump in out there. 527-6449.
Speaking of budgets and stuff, it's a little bit mind-boggling how the states can work on their budgets when the federal government, you don't know where they are. Their budget's about to run out again, right?
Yep, they're under a continuing resolution that'll run out January 19th.
Jan 19, right?
Yeah, so, beyond that, no idea. And when we think about things like that we rely on, federal highway funds, for instance, and all the money that, not being 100% sure.
No clue, or?
Yeah, where that's all going to come from, that's pretty scary. And people of all political stripes can agree that the mismanagement and the dysfunction is not healthy. So I like that we try to be responsible. I think in both the town and the city, we present ideas to voters, and sometimes they don't like it, and we can make changes, and we respond to that. And I think right now there's a real disconnect between the leadership at the national level and what people really need.
Liz, 2 months to go with your mayorship. Anything? We've talked about a lot of issues, obviously, tonight. Anything in particular that we haven't talked about that you'd like to move on while you're still St. Albans' mayor?
I would like to say, just to encourage folks to think about getting involved. It can be running for office. It can be appointed to a board or a commission. And a thank you to everybody who works within the communities to make things happen. Some people are good at being soccer coaches. I am not. I can run a meeting. So, we all have talents to share. And in this day and age, I don't think we can afford to leave talent on the table, or, we've got to put it out there. So we need to encourage one another to get involved and to take those steps. So anybody who's interested in figuring out how to get more involved, I'd love to have a conversation. Let's talk about it.
There's still people, do you find that people are less inclined to get involved? I think there's still a fair amount of people who are good. One minute, I'll give you very quickly.
Yeah, I think after the last election, I saw a number of people who I never thought would want to get involved in politics call me up and say, I want to do something because things have just gotten so crazy. So I think there has been kind of a swing back to looking at public service as something that people want to do, and I think there's a lot of love and honor in working with great people at the community level. So volunteer.
I guess we'll leave it right there. Thank you very much, Mike McCarthy, the Ward 4 City Councilor for St. Albans City. St. Albans Mayor Liz Gamache. I'd like to think we'd see you next month, Liz, but if not, We'll see you down the road. I'm sure you're not going to leave the city.
I'll be around.
Carrie Johnson, the Saint Albans Town Manager. Bruce Cheeseman, the Saint Albans Town Select Board Chairman. Thanks a lot. Appreciate the time. Thanks to the staff for doing all the hard work. David, Joanne, and Zach, thank you very much. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. We'll see you next month for another edition of Saint Albans Today. See ya.